All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, for the first time since 2011, the Philadelphia Phillies can boast about winning the National League East in consecutive years. Early on this season, it became apparent that the NL East was going to be a two-team race between the Phillies and the New York Mets. And after things were tight within the division up until about 5 weeks ago, the Phillies were able to put on the afterburners while the Mets, for the most part, have been stuck in neutral. And the end result was that Philadelphia became the first team to clinch their division this year. And they did it going away because they got a double digit lead right now. You look at the Phillies right now. They still got an outside shot to win 100 games this year. And of course, if they did it, it would be the first time since 2011 that that happened. Basically, at this point, Phillies, they got to run the table to do it. But nonetheless, you look at this Phillies team, they've already clinched their division. They're neck and neck with the Milwaukee Brewers for the top spot in the National League. And of course, that would be important because that would mean that the road to the World Series from the NL side would go through Citizens Bank Park. But nonetheless, with all of that said, how dangerous can this Phillies team be next month in the postseason? I look at this Phillies team. They're not perfect, okay? And I don't think any of the teams, that are going to be in the playoffs this year are going to be 100% guaranteed to win it all, okay? But nonetheless, I look at this Phillies team. Feel free to disagree with what I'm about to say, all right? I feel like it has somewhat, not all of it, but some of that 1993 culture and feel to this team. And of course, any of those old school Phillies fans out there that are going to listen to this, they know what I'm going to talk. They know what I'm talking about, rather there, because you think about that Phillies team, and they were just like a band of brothers. You think about it, it was like a mullet fest for the most part. The late Darren Dalton, Lenny Dykstra, John Kruk, Pete Incaviglia, Dave Hollins. We can go right down the list of that team. But you know what? They banded together. They were a tough-minded team, and they won the pennant. But, nonetheless, this Phillies team, they've had to deal with a lot, and they're going to have to deal with more if they want to go out there and win the World Series. Over what they've done, coming down the stretch, they had to overcome late season injuries to the likes of Trey Turner and Alec Bohm in their lineup. And of course, the hope is that both Turner and Alec Bohm will be available and healthy for the Phillies when the postseason begins. And of course, Trey Turner, you think about what he has meant to this Phillies team at the top of their lineup as a table setter, his ability to hit, and of course his ability to get on base and steal bases. And then a guy like Alec Bohm just adds more depth to your lineup. And of course, the big one for Philadelphia is not having the services of starting pitcher Zach Wheeler for the rest of this year. And of course, Wheeler was pitching like a guy who, could have possibly have won the Cy Young Award. At the time of the injury, Wheeler was 10-5 with a 2.71 ERA, and he had 195 strikeouts on the year. But nonetheless, you look at this Phillies team, even with the injuries, the recent injuries to Turner and Bohm, they still possess one of the top offenses in the National League. And with their penchant to hit and get on base, that means they're never going to be out of a game. So, you look at the guys in this lineup like a Bryce Harper, like a Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. We can just go right down the list of guys that can hit and put a lot of stress on opposing pitching staffs. If you're Philadelphia, you have to like your chances because of that. There's still depth in this rotation, okay, for the Phillies. You have Aaron Nola, who's working his way back from injury. Jesus Luzardo has been solid for the Eagles. Pardon me, for the Eagles. Please forgive me for that. For the Phillies this year, as has Christopher Sanchez. I think some of the wild cards, if you will, for Philadelphia going into the postseason in regards to their pitching. A Walker Bueller, who they just picked up after he was basically let go by the Boston Red Sox. And of course, Walker Buehler came up big for the Los Angeles Dodgers in their World Series championship last year. A veteran pitcher who's kind of been there and done that. Can he find that October magic again if Philadelphia calls upon him? You got guys like Ranger Suarez as well in this rotation. And then for me, I'm looking at a guy like Taijuan Walker. Taijuan Walker has been so up and down. I don't, I would not imagine seeing Philadelphia putting him in the rotation. Remember last year, Philadelphia didn't even play him in the postseason at all. Would they want to use him out of the bullpen? That's going to be another key question right there. But I think a big strength for Philadelphia, which was a weakness earlier in the season, is their bullpen. We saw the moves that Dave Dombrowski made prior to the trade deadline to bring in a guy like John Duran as well as David Robertson, veteran pitchers that kind of know how to get it done in those key situations. And I think that's going to be very important for Philadelphia heading into the playoffs. Now, Phillies manager Rob Thompson had his team on the cusp of winning the World Series championship 3 years ago. The Phillies have been right there. They've been knocking on the door, but you just have to wonder if things would be different or will be different this time around. I look at it like this. I think Philadelphia clearly remembers what happened last year. Um, they won 95 games. They won the East, and they had that first round bye, and then they ran into a buzzsaw last year in the divisional round rather, in the form of the New York Mets, and of course, the first time that these two longtime rivals met in the postseason, the atmosphere at both parks were electric. The Mets were one of the hottest teams over the second half of last season, and they just rode that wave of momentum, especially after their wild card win over the Milwaukee Brewers and then having to face the Phillies. And the Mets kind of got hot, kind of like how the Phillies got hot a couple of years ago when we saw them knock off the Braves after the Braves had the first round bye in order to advance in the postseason. So I think Philadelphia is definitely weary of that. I think there's definitely going to be more of a sense of urgency. But I look at it like this Phillies team, they're very interesting because, again, the talent is there. I think it's going to be important for them when they get into the playoffs. I think first and foremost, guys, not a guy, guys are going to have to step up in their starting rotation because you can win without Zach Wheeler, but guys are going to have to step up, and it's not going to be easy. You definitely lose a lot of depth in your rotation because a guy like Wheeler is a guy who you could easily count on to give you seven quality innings, really make an opposing lineup work. And now you lose that. So I think a guy like Aaron Nola is going to have to be on top of his game. A guy like Christopher Sanchez, who's been solid all season long for Philadelphia, can he do it again? Jesus Luzardo and so many others. And maybe if a Walker Bueller is called upon, it's going to be all hands on deck. Okay, and I think this postseason is going to be very, very interesting and very, very intriguing, especially on the National League side. But I think if you're the Phillies, you have a lot of confidence going in there. I think it was very telling of this team, and I think it showed a lot of character a couple of weeks ago when they were swept on the road by the Mets, and the Mets got the deficit down to 4 games. And it looked like the Mets were going to come on with some steam. They started to once again fizzle, and the Phillies were never, you know, wavered, if you will, by losing that series to the Mets. They came right back, got right back on track the very next series. And of course, the unofficial clincher of the NL East was when the Mets went to Philadelphia and the Phillies swept them in a crucial 4 game set. I think Philadelphia has a lot of confidence off of that. They're playing a big series right now with the Dodgers. Of course, I'm not a fan of cross country series this late in the season, but of course you can thank MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred for that with all of this everybody playing everybody thing. But nonetheless, I look at things right now. Philadelphia, they're a very talented team going into this postseason. I think they could be very dangerous if they're clicking on all cylinders. So let's see how things play out for the Fighting Phils going into the month of October. And of course, it's all about momentum. Can the Phillies keep that momentum going up, especially if they're going to have a first round bye and have a couple of days off? So it's a lot of factors there, but nonetheless, I still think that the Phillies will be a force to be reckoned with next month. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Just please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check us out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. And the same goes for Instagram, where you can check us out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, be sure to check us out at the Sports Depot 365. And like I always say, as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.